You know, with all of the social media platforms available today, telling your story has never been easier. And today's equipment makes recording audio and video pretty simple. But while creating content is not difficult, creating good content requires developing some skills. Skills like researching interesting topics, interview techniques, connecting with your audience, and understanding your equipment. The Calaveras Public Access Television Studio in San Andreas, California, gives residents in their viewing area free access to the equipment they need to produce podcasts, videos, films, news, and television programs. This video is an introduction into how to use the studio's RØDECaster Pro audio recorder. It is your first step into understanding the equipment so that you can make your own audio and video podcasts. Let's begin. The basic equipment you will need for recording a podcast include the recorder, in this case the RØDECaster Pro, microphones for you and each of your guests, headphones for you and each of your guests, and a micro SD card to capture the recording. The good news is that the studio provides everything you need except the micro SD card. Now, you do not need to buy a high-capacity, super-fast card to record audio. Instead, buy several less expensive cards that say SDHC, 32 GB, UHS-1, Class 10. The rule of thumb is 1 GB of storage equals about 1 hour of 2-track recording time. So 32 GB is a lot of audio. Also, be sure to buy a reputable brand. Rode recommends SanDisk or Samsung, but other cards such as Lexar should also work. And if you're going to do a lot of podcasting, it is also a good idea to purchase a case to hold the cards. There are all kinds of hard and soft cases out there, and one that holds 6 cards is a very convenient size. Let's begin by plugging in each of the microphones. Note that the RØDECaster uses XLR connections. These professional connectors are used to keep the audio signal free from interference from other electronic gadgets in the area. Plug the microphone that you will be using into channel 1. In fact, always plug the host into channel 1 because this often allows access to features not available to their guests. Then plug each of your guest microphones into channels 2, 3, and 4. Next, connect the headphones so that each person can clearly hear what they are saying. Insert the connector into the jacks with the headset symbol. Headphones usually have 1/8 inch or 1/4 inch connectors. The RØDECaster has an adapter to fit either size. Plug your headphones into jack number 1 to match your microphone channel. Do the same for your guest headphones, making sure to match the headphone jack number with the microphone channel number. To turn the RØDECaster on, make sure the power cord is plugged in and press the red power button on the back. The buttons on the panel will illuminate and the big record button will turn blue. Next, insert your micro SD card. Without touching the terminals, insert the card into the slot with the label facing up. The card slot is spring-loaded, so be sure the card is pushed in all the way and that it latches into the slot. When it does, the big blue record button will turn green. You might get a message on the screen that says the card must be formatted. This will happen with a new card or a card that has been formatted in another device. Formatting a card is easy. However, if the card has been used somewhere else, all of the data will be erased. So if you do not want to lose that data, be sure to copy the stuff on the card to another device before formatting. Follow the steps on the screen to format your card. Note that the X on the card symbol in the upper right-hand corner of the screen disappearing that the card is ready to use. Next, let's set up the podcaster to work with the microphones. This is a 2-step process. The first step is called leveling. You need to do this because the signal from the microphone is actually very weak. This step, also called setting the gain, Boost the microphone signal into a range the podcaster can use. Always begin with channel 1, the host channel. Set the volume slider for channel 1 to about the upper third of the scale. Press the button at the top of the channel. The menu for that channel will appear on the screen. If you are using microphones supplied by the studio, you need only concern yourself with tapping the level button on the screen. Begin speaking into the microphone on channel 1. Use your normal speaking voice 6 to 12 inches from the microphone. Watch the level meter on the screen. Your goal is to use the plus and minus buttons to place the meter's green squares between the two lines on the screen. If the meter keeps going beyond the lines or turns yellow or red, then the gain is too high and loud voices might get distorted. Use the minus button to lower the gain. Conversely, if the level meter does not reach the lines, the gain is too low and soft voices will be difficult to hear. Use the plus button to increase the gain. Once you are satisfied that the gain level is properly set, press the button at the top of the channel to return to the home screen. Next, set the volume slider, also called the fader. This will control how loud the recording will be on the SD card. Again, speak into the microphone in your normal tone and distance. Adjust the slider until the volume indicator on the home screen is near the top 1/3 of the scale. Important, and this is a common mistake, do not use your headphones to determine the recording volume. Each headphone has its own volume control, and that is only for the convenience of the listener. It has nothing to do with recording the volume. Always use the volume meter to determine the recording volume. Let me demonstrate the effect of changing the fader volume. Level 4. Level 5. Can you hear the difference? Level 6. Can you hear the difference? Level 7. Can you hear the difference? Level 8. Can you hear the difference? Level 9. Can you hear the difference? Level 10. Can you hear the difference? As you can see, the best results are in the upper third of both the slider and the meter. If the gain level is set correctly in the previous step, there is little chance the recording will be becoming too loud and distorted. However, if the volume is too low, this can be difficult to recover from. Repeat both of these steps, the gain level and the recording volume, with each microphone that you will be using. So now we're ready to position the microphones with your guest. The ideal position is to have the microphone right in front of the guest, and it's about 6 to 12 inches away. And when they're in that position, check your meter readings again, make sure everything's okay, and you can conduct your interview, and you're ready to go. And that's all pretty easy if all you're going to do is record audio. If you're going to do a video podcast, it gets a little bit trickier. Because a lot of times, depending on where their position is, the microphone could be in front of them, and it blocks the faces, and it doesn't compose quite as well. Also, and we'll demonstrate this, you still want the microphone nearby, but not too far away. So here's a compromise that tends to work. Take the microphone and put it off at an off angle, but make sure the microphone is still pointing at your guest's mouth. And you're going to want your guest to get comfortable. Whatever position they're going to interview in, get them comfortable so when you position the microphone, they're not doing this number. That way the voice will be recorded properly. So we're going to demonstrate what happens when your guest moves around and the impact it has on the recording quality. So if Tom, why don't you demonstrate what happens if your guest is getting the sway to it?
Well, it's when sometimes when you're telling stories and you're kind of losing track of what you're trying to say and you're scratching your head and things like that, you find out that you're not actually projecting your voice into the microphone. It's a problem.
Yes, that is something you have to be aware of when you set up with your guests. If they're comfortable to begin with, then the microphone position will probably be okay. Now, here's the thing. The microphone will pick up your guest a long way out. You're still going to be able to hear them, but the quality of the recording is going to diminish considerably because the further away you get from the microphone, it doesn't pick up the lower tones quite as well. So, yes, whereas it can be a little inconvenient at times, we really do want to be 6 to 12 inches from the microphone if at all possible. So to get Tom a little more comfortable, we're going to move the microphone off to the side. Tom, are you in a comfortable position here?
I'm still comfortable.
Okay.
I can actually look at you, and I can have good posture even in this position.
Mm-hmm. And we can have a conversation, and it actually looked pretty good on the screen. See, here's the other challenge. These microphones project, they're more sensitive toward the front than they are toward the back. Now, that's a good thing, because if it was what they call omnidirectional, then Tom's voice would bleed heavily onto my microphone, and I would bleed onto Tom's microphone. So what you try to do is get the microphones to be facing away from one another as much as you can. Again, if you're doing just a audio recording, that's not difficult to do. Nobody's going to know. You could be on the other side of the room and nobody would know. But if you're going to do a video podcast, you have to take in consideration what it looks like on the screen. So the compromise is usually to get your guests comfortable, get the microphone in a good position, point it at their mouth, and proceed. Also, don't forget to check your levels from time to time to make sure your guest is doing okay.
There's another thing that I discovered about podcasting, I think, is if you're trying to project your voice, your diaphragm doesn't work too well if you're slumped down here. You lose your ability to have a good vocal range. So, finding a position that is comfortable and kind of maintaining it is pretty important for several reasons.
And bearing in mind, your interview could last 5 minutes. It could go for 50 minutes. So you want to keep your guests comfortable. Now, so here's the sound of my voice when I'm what they recommended distance. This is what my voice sounds like talking into the microphone. And I'm going to start moving away, as you can see. And I'm probably twice as far away now. And then I'm probably half again as far. And now I'm leaning really further back. Okay, and now I'm going to come back in. And you can see how, even though you can still hear my voice, the quality of the voice changes. Now, my voice is in a different register than Tom. Tom, do the same thing. Come in close to your microphone, talk, and then move back away. Come in close.
Okay, let's give this a shot. So I am about 1 fist away, about 6 inches, and I'm going to go ahead and just slowly start to back away here. And as I do, I'm sure there's some kind of a audio drop-off here. We lose something in the quality. So let me go ahead and rock back here a little bit. And I'm sure you can probably tell there's a big quality difference. So I'm going to go ahead and move back in, and I am back in the range.
And you can really hear the difference in your headset. This is why you always put a headset on each one of your guests so that they can hear what it sounds like. And maybe they'll pick up that maybe I need to get a little bit closer, or the sound quality is not as good as it could be.
Which is a good point, that the host always needs to remind their guests of the importance of maintaining that range.
Very good point. It's up to the host. If the recording doesn't turn out very well, it's the host's fault.
So you have to be engaged. To do a good podcast, you have to pay attention to what's going on. Another item, you didn't see us actually set up the microphones, but there's a lot of cords here. We have a cord for our headset. We've got a cord for the microphone. Same thing for Tom. But it's try to get those clear out the space in front of it. That way, if your guest has any materials they want to share with you, or if there's an opportunity to put in some props, you have a nice clean space rather than having cords run all over the place. There's just a certain slobbiness to it if the cords are everywhere. This kind of cleans it up, gives it that professional polish, which is what you're looking for.
There's another thing, too, about having wires draped all over is you start snagging yourself on them and it starts getting picked up in the microphone. There's little sounds that you wouldn't believe what it can get picked up with a microphone, including moving cords that are going back and forth.
Yes, you will sometimes miss that, but these microphones will pick up sounds all around them. That's why if your guest has some water, and you should always supply your guests with the water, but be sure to supply them with a cup of water, not a plastic bottle, because the plastic bottles crinkle, and wow, these microphones really pick that up really well.
Yeah, even small things. I don't have one on me, but even things like rolling a pen back and forth, scratching a piece of paper. We actually have a tablecloth here, and underneath there is a piece of foam, and that's absorbing the sound that would basically be reflecting.
Okay.
One other thing is make a good choice in your furniture. It's pretty easy to have furniture that creaks. Stay away from things like swivel chairs, things that go back and forth, pivoting. Not a good thing. It'll pick up everything. These mics are incredibly powerful.
And if you don't, especially avoid anything that rocks or swivels, because not only can it produce a sound, your guest is going to be all over the place as you start. And they get excited because you're talking about something exciting, and that's going to be very distracting.
Yes, it is.
When everyone is set and the microphones are ready, you can begin recording your podcast. Press the green record button. When it turns red, you are now recording. Note that the screen will now display the recording time with a red dot next to it. To pause the recording, press and hold the record button until it turns flashing red. The recording time on the screen will pause, and the dot will become two parallel lines. This puts the recorder in standby. The pause feature is very useful if your recording session is interrupted for whatever reason. To resume recording, simply press the record button again and it will turn red, and the recording time will resume. To stop recording, briefly press the red record button. The record button will turn green, the recording will stop, and the recording time will disappear from the screen. Note that when you pause a recording, the podcaster is in standby mode and the file you're recording to remains open. When you resume recording, the podcaster will pick up where you left off. But when you stop a recording, the podcaster closes the recording file. Pressing the record again will recreate a whole new file.
I think that covers it. What do you think?
I think we've got our microphones placed. You've got your levels set. You have your topic. Everybody's ready to go. You're ready to record a podcast. We'll see you down at the station.